So I sang that song Loch Lomond a few days ago, that Scottish song, and it's an interesting song because there are several versions of it. There's one really old version. Can't remember when it's from, like early 18th century, something like that. And I don't think it has a known author, but it's very simple, you know. It's mostly just the chorus. But then Robert Burns wrote another version of it that maybe got a little bit more popular. But then there's a third version, and it's not by Robert Burns, it's by someone else, but I can't figure out who it is. And where I was exposed to it was through the Corries, which is a band that I like. And so I was singing the Corries version, but I don't know who wrote it, and I'm starting to wonder if it might have been Roy Williamson from the Corries, because he's been known from time to time to write lyrics, like he wrote Flower of Scotland, which is the de facto Scottish national anthem now. And so, what's the deal? Why am I talking about this? Well, Roy's version, if it is indeed written by Roy, which it might not be, the Corries version of the song is about a widow, and her husband was in the 45 rebellion of Prince Charles Stuart, and he died in that war. And so it's about her dealing with the death of her husband. And so there's one verse that goes, "Oh, weel may I weep, for yestreen in my sleep we stood bride and bridegroom together, but his arms and his breath were as cold as the death, and his heart's blood ran red in the heather." So that's a verse in that. Let's switch the topic over to the TV show MASH. Have you ever seen that TV show? It's about doctors in a hospital, a mobile army surgical hospital in the Korean War. And one of the characters is a major who is also a nurse named Margaret Houlihan. Hot Lips Houlihan. And there's an episode. It's a very chilling episode. Like, one of the most chilling pieces of television I've ever seen. And in this episode, you see all of their dreams. And their dreams, they're so brutal. They are so brutal, because they're all trauma dreams of working in a hospital in the Korean War. So, like, there's this one doctor who has a dream that he's this magician, and he's just performing all of these magic tricks in front of this patient who's dying, and then they just wheel the body away from him slowly while he's performing these magic tricks. And there's no music, and it's played totally seriously, and it's chilling because, like, tonally it's completely different from the rest of the show. Because the rest, like, most episodes of MASH are very silly comedies, but then this one is just ice cold. It pulls no punches. And so anyway, Margaret Houlihan's dream she's getting married. She's in a field getting married. And then she notices that there's blood everywhere. And she looks down and she sees the man who she was getting married to is all bloody and wounded and dying in this field. Now, is that not exactly verbatim, word for word, what happens in that verse that I recited? Let me go through it. "O will may I weep for yestreen in my sleep." That means yesterday evening I was sleeping. "We stood bride and bridegroom together." So this is a dream where they're getting married. "But his arms and his breath were as cold as the death, and his heart's blood ran red in the heather." So he's bleeding, he's dead, and his blood is seeping into the ground because they're in a field of heather. It's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing. So that leaves a few options. One option is that this thing is written by Roy Williamson after that episode of MASH came out. Another option is that it was, the episode of MASH was based on that part of the song. And the third option is that it's just a coincidence and they just happen to be the same thing. I don't know, it's just weird. And it's especially weird because I can't track down who wrote that version of Loch Lomond. If you can track that down, tell me, because I want to know. Because I wasn't able to figure it out. But it's very good imagery, and so it makes for a very good song. Yeah, that's it. That's VEDN Day 24. I'll see you tomorrow for VEDN Day 25.